Good morning, everyone. Hi, my name is Jane Devonshire, and I'm one of the co-founders of SICAN, the South Island Climate Action Network. SICAN's info session today is on the exciting and game-changing low-carbon energy system, or LCES bylaws, a creative way to get methane fracked gas out of new builds. About SICAN, we started building our organization I think around 2019, after the massive youth climate strike. We felt that the provincial and federal governments weren't moving fast enough, and the municipalities can start to make the changes necessary from the bottom up, since municipalities are one of the greatest GHG emitters. So what we do is we have reps from most of the 13 municipalities in the Capital Regional District of Victoria. We meet monthly to share ideas and what we're doing, support each other, and unite when necessary to amplify our collective voice. You can join us on our website, the link of which has been sent out to you along with this video. So I'd like to introduce you to Megan Curren and Dave Thompson. We're delighted to have them with us today. Councillor Megan Curren from the District of North Vancouver helped to get the LCES bylaw passed. And our fellow SICAN member is Dave Thompson. So I will turn it over to Dave now to give you more context. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. So yeah, my name's Dave Thompson. I'm a volunteer with SICAN, and I did a little bit of research on the low carbon energy system bylaws in various cities in BC. So the problem is pretty clear. Methane gas causes greenhouse gas emissions. And municipalities all over BC have goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It will be much harder to meet those goals if we're expanding the fossil fuel network, the system of delivery of methane gas. So there are upstream, what are called upstream impacts from natural gas or methane gas mining and fracking. And there are also health impacts. We're not going to deal with those today. I would refer anybody interested to the CAPE website, which is www.cape.ca/fracking. That's the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment. There have been some claims that renewable natural gas is the solution, and I think Megan will probably speak to that a little bit. The problem with renewable natural gas is that it actually includes fossil fuel sources, and there are other problems as well. So new buildings that are built now are going to be around for many years, decades actually. And if we put the methane natural gas pipes in, we're going to be locking in decades of emissions. So the nice thing about these low carbon energy system bylaws is that they prevent that from happening. And as Megan will say, it's cheaper to do it when you're building than to retrofit in the future. So I have a quick slide I wanted to show. So what you're looking at here is a chart that shows greenhouse gas emissions from different energy systems, from different heating and cooling systems of buildings. So it's a bit complicated. So I'm going to just go to the next slide in this chart. This is a slightly simplified version. So what you see here is the scale on the left showing greenhouse gas emissions. This is average emissions per square meter of a building per year. Down on the bottom left, you can see the electric systems, so electric heating and cooling systems. These are the emissions down here in those blue bars. And then up on the right are these green bars with methane gas system greenhouse gas emissions. So much higher. And the two blue bars are different types of electrical systems. So one is ordinary baseboard type heaters, and the other one is, the smaller one is electric heat pumps. And on the right side with those natural gas systems or methane gas systems, you've got a standard gas furnace, and then you've got what's called a hybrid gas system, which has slightly lower emissions. So I'm going to go back to the original, more complex slide. So what we have across the bottom here is 5 steps. So this is the BC Energy Step Code. This is something that the BC government created years ago, and municipalities are required to start adopting it this year. As you can see, as you go through the different steps, the emissions go down. So as we build more energy efficient buildings, the level of emissions goes down. But what you'll notice is that the natural gas or methane gas emissions are much, much higher than electrical system emissions at every level of the step code. And even when we get to the very top level, the step 5 of the step code, you'll see that natural gas emissions are still several times higher than emissions from electricity. And in fact, even without doing anything on the step code, we can dramatically reduce building greenhouse gas emissions just by switching to electric source heating and cooling systems. So obviously it's better to have electric systems, and several municipalities have already adopted low carbon energy system bylaws. And that roughly includes half the population of BC. So the District of North Vancouver, the City of North Vancouver, West Vancouver, Richmond, Surrey, Powell River, New Westminster. The City of Vancouver also has its own unique bylaw power and has adopted something very similar to a low carbon energy system bylaw. There may be other cities that are doing it. I know several that are considering it right now. If you know of any, please do let us know. We will be including that information on our website. So several are in the process of looking at their bylaws right now and creating them right now. But one of the first to do it, and perhaps it was the very first to use the step code mechanism, was the District of North Vancouver. So Megan Curren, our other guest today, moved that bylaw at council, and we're very, very delighted to have her. So Megan, why don't you take it away from here?
Thank you, David and Jane. As you all know, I'm Megan. I'm grateful to be coming to you from the unceded lands of the Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish peoples, and what we now refer to as the District of North Vancouver. So this low carbon energy system, or the LCES bylaw, if you could please advance to the next slide. So this is the definition from the District of North Vancouver. A low carbon energy system is one that uses primarily low carbon energy sources to provide heating, cooling, and hot water for a building, and has a total modeled greenhouse gas intensity of no more than 3 kilograms of CO2 per meter squared per year. And so that is what we refer to as the GHGI, or the greenhouse gas intensity, which the step code notably does not give municipalities the ability on its own to regulate the greenhouse gas intensity, which is very critical. If you could go to the next slide, please. So since, again, in the District of North Vancouver, since 2018, the District of North Vancouver adopted the step code at step 3 for part 3 and part 9 buildings. Most new buildings are to be designed and constructed to the energy efficiency targets set out in the BC Energy Step Code. So I think that's important to understand, that the BC Energy Step Code is about efficiency, not about greenhouse gas intensity. So in July of 2021, the requirement for new buildings for both part 3 and part 9, and we can get into a little bit more about what part 3 and part 9 buildings are, has been upgraded to encourage the use of a low carbon energy system. And next slide, please. So part 9 buildings are smaller buildings, a lot of times single family homes, coach houses, smaller townhomes. And then part 3 residential buildings are the larger multifamily apartment projects. And then part 3 commercial. And then we also have significant renovations, which we did. So renovations over $1 million, we changed with this bylaw as well. And so looking at part 9 buildings, step 5 is the highest, is a net zero energy ready building, according to the BC Energy Step Code. and then step 3 with a low carbon energy system. And then for the larger multifamily projects and commercial projects, mixed use projects, there's a distinction there. So step 4 for part 3 buildings, residential, is the highest step in the BC step code. So that's like the highest step, or you can tier down to a lower step with the low carbon energy system. So this was giving the development community the option to build to the highest step of the step code, or to build to a lower step with a low carbon energy system. So it was providing that choice. Next slide, please. So the 2-tiered low carbon energy approach is compliant, provides the option, as I mentioned, to either construct at the highest step or to construct at a lower step using this low carbon energy system. It requires all thermal conditioning, domestic hot water for the building to be from low carbon energy sources, and it incentivized the low carbon energy systems while enabling builders to construct at the lower step of the energy code. So next slide, please. So the reason the District of North Vancouver, as well as many other local governments around the world, have declared climate and ecological emergencies and pledged to create science-based policies that actually align with our fair share, or I would argue we're not quite to our fair share, but we are at a percentage of reduction. So in the District of North Vancouver, that was committing to a 45% over 2007 baseline to 2030. And so it had identified our community energy and emissions plan, and I think many municipal governments have climate action plans or community energy and emissions plans, had previously identified these 3 key actions. And so advancing this bylaw was really a way to actually do what we said we needed to do, what we had identified that we needed to do. So the third one there is to adopt the greenhouse gas emissions targets to move towards zero emission new construction projects. So next slide, please. So in June of 2020, I had brought forward a report that was actually about greenhouse gas intensities for rezoning. My understanding at the time was that was the only place that we had the option, based on the limitations of the step code, to regulate greenhouse gas intensity. It wasn't ideal because it would rezoning doesn't capture new builds all the time. So, but it was my understanding at the time that that was the only place that council had the ability to regulate. And I said, well, let's do what we can. And the staff actually came back with an information report to say that there was this option to the BC step code enabled us through current legislation to do this tiered approach. They went out and consulted with industry over a number of months, and in November of 2020, they came back to council with the bylaw to adopt the 2-tier approach, and it was adopted, and it was adopted by a strong majority of council. There was very little opposition to that, I think, based on the fact that it was a way to operationalize what we had already committed to in our SEEP plan. And then the policy was implemented in July of 2021. So there was a gap between when the policy was conceptualized and when it was actually implemented. So it is now it'll be coming up on a year that it has been in practice in the district. This is the actual bylaw, which just shows that it amended certain sections to include this greenhouse gas intensity and be specific around what that meant. And then next slide, I think it's probably too much for a slideshow. So this is just continuing how the construction bylaw was amended to account for this change. And next slide, please. So just briefly covering some of the many co-benefits. This is a less costly option versus future retrofits. We're in a position now where we need to do mass retrofitting of existing building stock. And it is more challenging to retrofit than it is to do it the first time the right way. It's helping to support industry capacity to change. It is creating certainty. We were able to work across 3 North Shore municipalities, so the City of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver, which provides more certainty for the market. And then of course, Vancouver's just across the water, and they have been regulating greenhouse gas intensity for longer because they do operate under a unique charter. So they're able to do things that other municipalities aren't. More COVID benefits are lower monthly costs. Heat pumps are highly efficient. The health benefits, as Dave sort of alluded to, are one of the main reasons why we do this work, is to keep people healthy, and understanding that in order for people to be healthy, we need a very healthy planet to do so. This aligns with science-based targets. So we're simply doing what we have said we're going to do. This is actually operationalizing our commitments. And it both does adaptation and mitigation. So adaptation meaning in our changing climate, this will actually provide cooling, which is going to become increasingly more important. And it also is mitigation. So it's reducing emissions. So it's we're trying to stop making things worse, and we're preparing for what's already coming. So it makes a lot of sense to do this at both times. And I think, is that the end?
I think that's the end of the slide deck, yeah.
So yeah, happy to answer any questions. That's just kind of a high level overview of how it went down in our municipality.
Thanks, Megan. That's a really interesting story. It looks like it was pretty quick from first bringing it forward to staff to the point where the bylaw was actually adopted. As you mentioned, the bylaw didn't actually come into effect until several months later, but it looks like it was only about, 4 or 5 months or something between first talking about it and having the bylaw passed. Is that about right?
Well, so I think in municipal speak, I'm a first term councillor, so to me, I was like, is this fast? But I'm learning, yes, this is fast for how slow things can go in government. But to have a very first report come out in June, and then to have the bylaw in November presented for first, second, and third reading, and I think adoption followed shortly thereafter, was pretty fast turnaround. And then the policy was implemented. So basically a year from the first council report to implementation is not, like, I'm very happy with how that happened at the time. Of course, I'm like, tomorrow, like, this is a climate emergency, we need to decarbonize immediately. But having that opportunity to go out and make sure, like, we do want these policies to be successful, and that's what's exciting, is that this is not new technology, right? This is something that has been done in many countries for many decades. So we're definitely behind here in terms of our approach to just energy efficiency in general. Like, we need to be understanding energy differently, and we need to be using a lot less of it. And I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah. Now, just to put it in context, looking into low carbon energy systems was in the work plan for the city of Victoria in 2019, and it still hasn't happened. So we're now 3 years later, and I think that the city was waiting for the province to do something, but the province just hasn't done anything. And so I think that the city of Victoria is going to be moving ahead now. We in the South Island here, South Vancouver Island, we also have several municipalities around, and I know that some of the other municipalities are looking into low carbon energy system bylaws as well. So the District of North Vancouver, the City of North Vancouver, and West Van are all three on the North Shore. And then, as you mentioned, there's Vancouver and Burnaby and others in the Lower Mainland. Did the district, I know there was discussion between staff in the different municipalities, information sharing and that sort of thing, but did the district wait and hold back on implementing the bylaw to make sure that the other municipalities were doing it, or just go ahead?
No, well, I don't want to speak, I'm not entirely sure what went down behind the scenes, but I do believe that it was clear, because it was council direction, that we were doing it. So I think if the city of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver, and I believe the District of West Vancouver, props where props is due, I believe they were moving either in tandem or even ahead of us. I'm not sure everything kind of happened at the same time, but I do know that staff did work together, and that we also had people in the development industry saying that that would be important to them to try to harmonize the policies across the North Shore, because you know, I like to think of it as one community, but so that was important. And the other thing that I think is important is that we had industry leading this. Like, industry was coming to us saying, we've been building these buildings in Vancouver, like, this is a no-brainer, this is what we need to do. So there already was capacity to do this. This was just creating certainty, leveling the playing field, and aligning with science-based targets.
Yeah, that's interesting, leveling the playing field. So I know from my volunteer work in our community association land use committee that developers here are already installing electric heat pumps as heating systems here. So I think in Victoria, at least, it would be the same approach of leveling the playing field. Like, we've got industry leaders already. It's something that can be done. So why not have everybody doing it? Jane, yeah. Did you have some questions?
No questions. I just want to let people know that Esquimalt is going to get a presentation on LCES bylaws as well as SANAGE. So we've got some very supportive councillors behind us. So just want to let people know that.
Okay, great. And Megan, I guess one final question for me. So this was brought about fairly recently, like I guess came into effect about a year ago. Has there been pressure by industry on the district council to reverse this and revoke the bylaw, or has industry just gone ahead with it?
No, industry is moving forward. There's, you know, whether it's the smoke-filled skies or the heat domes, you know, I think people are recognizing that we are, although very, very late, the need to transform is urgent. And it seems to be widely accepted now that this is the future that we're creating. And it's quite simple. You put in more fracked gas, you raise your emissions. You put in less, you lower your emissions. And so it's, yeah, it's a no-brainer. And then I think there is definitely more public awareness around the health impacts of having fracked gas in your home.
Oh, I forgot to mention that Nanaimo just did a presentation on the LCES bylaws as well. The Nanaimo Climate Action. Sorry?
Was that City Council at Nanaimo?
Yes, it was. And yeah, it was quite interesting because Fortis was on the same agenda just before they presented, and they were extolling the virtues of RNG. And after the LCS presentation, we had Dr. Deborah Curry from Cape, and she nailed it. She told them, you know, how flawed their arguments were on RNG.
The important part about that is someone who bought the 100% renewable natural gas that was available here is that it is, I believe, about 2.5 times the cost of fracked methane, although of course what's coming into your home is fracked methane, but it's 2.5 times the cost. So it is more expensive to capture methane out of landfill, et cetera, than it is to do the traditional fracking. And so I think that cost piece is lost in a lot of these conversations, and that's a very important piece of the conversation.
So basically, the household is subsidizing Fortis with the premium payment for this RNG, and they're not actually getting RNG piped to their homes. Is that correct? Yeah.
So there's no, the renewable natural gas in total from Fortis is under 1% of the fracked gas supply, and Clean BC has a target of 15% to 2030. And yeah, there's a lot more to it than that. But if what's coming into your home is fracked gas, fracked methane, and what's coming through the pipes is fracked methane, the impacts to the environment and to health are from fracked methane. And so I think it's really important that people understand the human, environmental, and actual economic costs of it very carefully before moving forward with anything other than a low carbon energy system, and looking very closely at energy efficiency.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't have any more questions for Megan. Thanks from me, Megan. And Jane?
Yes, thank you. Do you have any closing comments, Megan, that you'd like to say?
Just that I appreciated the opening, Jane, is that, many of us got onto council because we also felt like other orders of government were not moving fast enough. And we at local governments, we do have the ability to move more quickly, and we have a responsibility to do that. And collectively, local action is global action when it's done collectively. And so I think that that is so important. And this can be done. There's so many benefits to doing it, and the more people that do it, the more we can actually start implementing these science-based targets that we talk about but don't actually operationalize. This is a no-brainer. There's lots of things that are going to be a lot harder than this. So I say get on with this so that we can get on to the other work that we need to do. So yeah, and I'm happy to talk to anyone who has any questions, but this is the future, and we have a small window of time to do what we need to do. So let's get her done.
Thank you so much, Megan. Before we wrap up, I just want to let people know that on our SciCan webpage, there is information on the LCES for councillors and community members who wish to advocate for this. And I'd just like to say thank you so much, Megan, for sharing your valuable insights with us today. Here's to a cleaner and safer future for everyone.
Thanks for all you all do.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.